Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Frank DiBartolomeo. He's the founder of DiBartolomeo Consulting International, and he's the host of the Successful Speaking for Technical Professionals podcast. After years in the armed forces and working in engineering roles, he started his firm to help technical professionals with their public speaking skills. I'm really curious to learn more about his evolution from officer to engineer to founder and to podcast host. So, welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Frank.
Thank you.
So, from the bit of research I did on you, Frank, I saw you studied electrical engineering. So, what was the motivation to do that?
Uh, Probably Mr. Bobat in high school. He was my math teacher, and he saw that I had an affinity for mathematics. And he said, "Hey, Frank, have you ever thought about going to this Newark College of Engineering, Newark, New Jersey?" I said, "No, not really." He said, "You're pretty smart. You might want to try some engineering." But I also in high school took electronics shop. So I worked on at that time car radios, color TVs, things like that. So I had an affinity for electronics, and I had good enough grades to. I went to a trade high school, so I just went up through trigonometry. I didn't go to the calculus or not anything like that. But I had my grades were good enough to go to this Newark College of Engineering, which is now called the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Uh, so, uh, I was fortunate enough to go through Air Force ROTC when I was in the school, and I was commissioned as second lieutenant. And I was also fortunate enough to go to the Air Force Graduate School, Engineering Graduate School at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. So I was 23 and I had a bachelor's and a master's in double E, and that master's really helped me out through my career.
Nice. But I also saw that you got another master's in, I think it was in IT. So was that much later? And what
Yes.
was the reason to get that master's?
Yes, and I'm not going to tell you how many decades later it was after my last degree, but it was a few. Uh, about 2014, I first of all, let me say I came into the Air Force in 78. I retired in 1999, and I was up in the Northern Virginia area. My wife and I decided that that was a good place for jobs. So I went to work for a government contractor, and it was I was supporting them in engineering, mostly the three-letter organizations, government organizations up in Northern Virginia. But around 2014, to answer your question, around 2014, there was a market correction, what I consider like a market correction in salary, like a market correction in the stock market. And I was being offered, when I was going to new contracts, I was being offered 30 to $40,000 less than I had on my current contract. So I started looking around, and I noticed that all the job descriptions had these two letters, two capital letters, IT. And so I decided to go back even later in life to get a master's degree from Virginia Tech. And that has helped me out. I was in the computer area when I was an undergrad many years ago, so I knew some of the lingo, but obviously things have catapulted from when I was in undergrad school. So that's why I got the degree, and I graduated in 2019. My daughter graduated from high school the same year. I asked if she wanted to have a joint graduation party. She would have none of that. So but yeah, it was great, and I have used it since.
I'm curious then, because of the big difference, the gap between the first time you went to school and the second time. What differences did you find in just being in school?
Well, first of all, there were computers. When I was in underground school, I'm betraying a little bit of my age, but when I was in school, there wasn't such a thing as a personal computer. I did have a friend in the electrical engineering program, and he ordered a personal computer from someplace. It came on a breadboard. It had a had a little keypad to put in assembly language. So that wasn't a computer, but I'm sorry, what was your question again? I don't think
No, the difference between the first
Oh,
and the
the
second time you
difference.
were in
Yeah.
school.
So, I mean, obviously, we're on laptop computers now. I bought my first computer in 1983. It had a whopping 48K RAM. Oh my God, I was like slick. And it had 40 columns across. And I bought a 16K language card that allowed me to do 80 columns across. There was no such thing as a mouse. The mouse had not come out. The year after that, 1984, the Macintosh came out with the mouse, which, by the way, I think was a Xerox invention. But Xerox, of course, didn't play it up, and they lost the funds from that. But so it's incredible. I had a website company in Manassas, not Manassas, I'm sorry, Warrenton, Virginia, that I went to. I had them about 7, 8 years ago, and it basically is a storefront, and you walk up to the place where the website company was, and on the left they had a display of old computers and the evolution, and I think I might have had every one of those computers. So the processing power, the of course the internet came along in the mid 90s, which revolutionized things, which allows us to do what we're doing now. So it's been a quantum leap. I can honestly say I was here during the whole personal computer age, and hopefully I'll be here for a lot longer.
Nice. And yes, I hope you are as well. From your work in the when you were in the military all those years ago, how did that prepare you for working outside the military and industry?
Well, I worked with industry a lot. I was in the Air Force, but I was not a pilot. I was an engineer. So I can truly say I've been an engineer for 44 years, uh, both in the military and outside. But I did work with contractors. One of mine was Grumman before it was Northrop Grumman. My specialty was electronic warfare, which was basically designing systems to jam radars, that type of thing. And we had a program, the F-111 program. The F-111 is actually an F-111 fighter bomber that's been modified to do electronic warfare, standoff electronic warfare. And we had a contractor, Grumman, that was upgrading the memory on the, this will be amusing to you, upgrading the memory in the system to 512K, to 512K, not from 512K. So, but it was interesting. So I got to know a lot about the inner workings of contractors and how they work and how, for the government, we're not on a profit and loss basis. So money isn't as important. It should be important because it's taxpayers' money, but it doesn't take as much of a precedence as it does in business, because in business you have to have more money coming in, more money than you're taking out of the business. So I got to learn a lot about contracting and things like that.
Nice. But at some point you decided to found your own consulting firm. So what was the motivation to do that?
Well, I had a stint at the Pentagon, 94 to 96, and I chose to go to a teaching assignment, which, by the way, was the best assignment that I had had. I love teaching, and it comes out through my business now also. But the reason I left is that I looked at my chances of being promoted to colonel. I was a lieutenant colonel when I retired, and the chances are, especially from the assignment I was in, was not that great. So I had the Air Force dangling those Colonel Fulbird, Colonel Eagles, and I just decided it was time to move on. And I was in the right place to move on because there were a lot of jobs, and still are, even with Doge, up in the Washington, D.C., Virginia, Northern Virginia area. So I embarked on a career with. I had not been in intelligence my whole Air Force career. I was in aircraft subsystems, electronic warfare, but a lot of the intelligence that happens in the government happens around Northern Virginia. So I started working with a company. I got on a program that on a proposal, which we eventually won. It was the largest contract the company that I was with had ever had. So I was off of my career, and I've bounced around a little bit. I only worked for two contractors the whole time though, but I've been a program manager. I've been deputy lead engineer on programs, some fairly large programs. So I don't know. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, but at some point you decided that the Bartolomeo Consulting International was going to be a thing and you're going to start working with technical people on their speaking. So what was the motivation to make that shift?
Well, one of the things I did when I was in the Air Force in 1990, actually it was January 9th, 1990, I went to my first Toastmasters meeting, the Wright Flyers Toastmasters in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And I thought I was pretty good at speaking. I had been in 12 years, and uh, I I had briefed generals and higher level civilians. And I went in there thinking one thing. 1 hour later, I came out thinking there's a lot to learn. And even as an engineer, I love to speak to people, to audiences, whether they be virtual or not. And so I brought that together. I actually started the company in 2007 on paper. I got my EIN and registered with Virginia, that type of thing. But it wasn't until I joined the National Speakers Association. It took me 10 years to figure out, well, if I want to be a professional speaker and a public speaking consultant to engineers, maybe I need to go and talk to the people and be part of their group that actually make a living from this. So I joined the National Speakers Association. And in fact, tomorrow I'm going to their influence conference in Scottsdale, Arizona. Every year they have that. And I started, my eyes were opened up. I could ask people that were actually doing what I wanted to do, how do you go about doing this? And I learned that there's two things to a speaking business. There's working in the business, which is actually the speaking, and then there's working on the business. Okay, you can't just speak. You have to get leads. You have to have a CRM. You have to do all those business things that allow you to work in the business, do your craft. So that's been a godsend, and I belong to a number of networks. Probably you do too, of different people in different areas. My biggest network, or my most valuable network, is the NSA, National Speakers Association Network.
Wonderful. Yeah, I was a member of Toastmasters myself. I remember one of the Toastmaster clubs I belonged to, to discourage people from using filler words, we had a jar, and every time you used one, you had to put 25 cents into it. There was one member who would come into the room and just put $5 in the jar right away.
I have seen that. I have seen that. Even though every Toastmasters club you go to, and you know better than I do, but for your viewers, every Toastmasters club you go into a meeting, it will be the same format. There's three things. There's prepared speeches, there's table topics, which is practicing impromptu speaking, and then there's evaluation of the prepared speeches. Other than that, clubs can be very different. I've seen that before. So, it's Toastmasters gives you a lot of leeway as to how you can run your club. But the good thing about Toastmasters is because it's member run, it's very cheap. In fact, the international dues are $60 every 6 months. And it did go up. I think it was $45 for the longest time. And then in the last year went up to $60. But even that, you're talking $120 a year. If you look at your salary, you're talking, much less than 1% of your salary. But the payoff, the return on investment is incredible because Toastmasters gives you a regular venue to practice your speaking. And that could aid you on your job. People that are the better speakers are the ones that get noticed. They're the ones uh, that get leadership positions. They're ones that become project leaders. All those types of things. So that's hopefully that answers your question again.
Oh, for sure, Frank. And I think you're absolutely right. In fact, I know you're right. The people who move up within organizations are the visible people. And if you're if you're not one of those people, then you're going to be one of those disgruntled people because someone else got the position or the opportunity you thought you deserved, but because they were visible, because they were noticed, because of their ability to speak, especially in front of decision makers. Well, now you're seated in your cubicle mad, but you had an opportunity to improve. You chose not to. You thought, well, my good work will speak for itself, but everyone's doing good work. At least the majority of people are doing good work. So what is that? How does
Mhm.
that? How are you positioned differently than those people? But yeah, you're absolutely right. The speakers are the ones that get the opportunities.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the film Field of Dreams.
Yep.
What's the tagline from that? Build it and they will come.
Yeah, if you build it, they will come. Yeah.
Well, when you're in business, you can build something, but if you don't tell them about it, they won't come. So that's what you have to do, and that's why. And then I I don't have any evidence on this, but my guess is the people that are better speakers are the ones that stay longer in companies. And why do they do that? Because they get the opportunities that motivate them to go further. So the disgruntled people are the people that, and for other reasons too, I understand, but probably one of them is that they're not great speakers and they don't want to speak in public. And by public, I mean even in your company, to other people. And that's a sad thing. I just got off I have a program, a 3 session, 2 hour session program that I give one-on-one to people. I just finished up with a young man and he just graduated from college. And the reason he came to me is that when he went through and he got a job, he went through 4 interviews, but they did give him some feedback on his interviews. And one of the feedbacks was he talks too fast, mumbles his words sometimes. So he said, I'm going to start a new job in August with these people. I'm going to find somebody that can help me. So we just finished the session, third session yesterday, and he was very grateful. I think he got a lot out of it. We practiced one of his presentations, and then I gave him an evaluation. He looked at that evaluation. This is how Toastmasters, how you become better in Toastmasters, better speaker through Toastmasters. He took that evaluation, he injected some of the things that I said, and it was a much better presentation the second time. And he can always improve because you can always improve. But he was very grateful.
Wow, that's wonderful. And that's smart of him to be so young, just coming out of school, to think that that's something to improve at. I know for myself, the whole motivation for starting Teach the Geek was me struggling giving presentations in front of management. And I was a few years into working as an engineer, and I noticed that I was not very good at it. But I also noticed that a lot of the other engineers, they weren't all that much better at it than I was. And some of them were younger than me, some of them were older, but all of us
Right.
struggled with it. But someone coming out of school knowing that this is something to improve at, and
Mhm.
that's great.
There's a story that Brian Tracy tells of winning by a nose. If you have a horse race and the horse winning by a nose, the horse that wins by a nose may get 10 times the winnings of the horse that lost by a nose. Now the question is the horse that won by a nose 10 times better? No, they aren't. They're just a nose better. So the analogy here is that all you have to do is improve your speaking and people will notice you. And everybody's being compared to everybody else, right? Or at least they think they are. So you will be rising up. You will get noticed, and because of that, your career will take off.
Yeah, 100%. I mentioned in the intro that you also host a podcast, Frank. So, what's the podcast about and what do you hope people get from it?
Yes, the podcast is about. I have a little process. And I'm getting ready to go video on it, but right now it's just audio. But what I do is every week, and this is something that a coach of mine said, you have to get content out there every week so that people know your expertise. People won't trust you unless they believe that you can help them. And one way to do that is to get content out there. So every week on Monday morning at 10 o'clock, I publish a presentation, or not a published presentation, a newsletter. And that newsletter is all about speaking. It could be a couple of weeks ago, I had one about how to deal with overwhelm when you're a speaker. The good thing about them is they're always the same format. I always have three main points. Same with my speeches and my presentations, three main points, because the audience can remember three main points and you can remember three main points. So I published that. And then on Tuesday, normally on Tuesday, I didn't do it this week, I publish it to LinkedIn. And then on Wednesday, I record a basically what the newsletter was. So it's all about, there's a richness of information. And if you go to my website, speakleadandsucceed.com, and click on articles, there's over 300 articles on public speaking. When I first started this, I came home from the coach who told me to do this, and I told my wife I'm going to write an article on public speaking every week. And she said, "How can you possibly do that?" And I've been doing it since June of 2019, and a lot of it has to do with making analogies between what's happened in my life that week to public speaking. And there are analogies you can make. It really, to me, it's not that hard. It might be harder to other people, but that's why I did it. I started last September. I'm going to go I'm going to go video on them pretty soon. I have a guy that's going to give me a video outro and intro and outro, and then I'll basically go video with him.
Nice. What do you think is the biggest issue that technical people have when it comes to speaking in front of others?
Well, definitely a couple of things. Number one, they don't analyze their audience. They don't know who their audience is. And a speaker that doesn't know their audience is basically out in the ocean in a rowboat with no paddle. You don't know where you're going. You may be talking down to people, you may be talking up to people. You don't know where that sweet spot is. So the first thing I always tell engineers and scientists that are my clients is you need to know who your audience is. What's their age? What's their expertise in your topic? What's their opinion of your topic? Talk to the event planner who's ever, if there's a heavy hitter at your presentation, go talk to their executive assistant. Ask them what they like to see in slides. Ask them what they like to see in presentations. Do they like 3 points? Do they like 5 points? Do they like whatever? And cater to that audience. Okay, it's a little bit. Some people say it's a little bit underhanded, but it's smart. Also, before every presentation, I get there an hour before. And of course, a couple of days before, I've checked out all the audio and video and that type of stuff and computer stuff. But I always plant myself at the front door or at the entrance door, and I greet people as they come in. And, it's the old kindergarten thing. Hi, my name's Frank. What's yours? And I asked them two questions. I asked them, what is frustrating about this topic for you? And the second question is, what would make this presentation successful for you? Kind of the same thing, but a little bit different. And then at the beginning of my presentation, since I can maybe get to 20% of the crowd, I actually have a flip chart paper up there, and I ask the crowd, what's frustrating about this? What would make it successful for you? And then I tape them up to the wall so everyone in the audience can see that all day. If I'm in a virtual call, I'll put them in the chat so that everybody can see what it is. And sometimes I even appoint somebody to kind of check me. If I haven't gotten to something, they have permission to interrupt and say, Frank, you didn't get to that one line there. Oh, okay. Because you have slides when you go to a presentation, but if those slides don't answer what the audience wants and needs, they usually know what they want. Sometimes they don't know what they need. Then you've missed the mark. So I want to hand in glove with that audience. I want to be answering the questions that they may not even have asked. So that's what I do.
Nice. And that makes perfect sense. You don't want people in your audience just listening to information that perhaps they don't care to know. That makes perfect sense to me.
Exactly.
What about when it comes to people being nervous giving presentations? What suggestions do you have to manage nerves?
Yes. The number one reason people come to Toastmasters is because they have a fear of speaking, and they have to do it as part of their job or maybe at school board meetings or wherever. Couple things. There's nothing that will help you more to reduce your fear of speaking than to practice. Practice is where most speakers do not put enough time into. And there's a chronology of practicing. This is the way I teach it. Practice sitting down. You're at your computer, you see your slides, you're just talking, and record yourself all the time. Because it's amazing what you can pick up after the recording. If you can video record yourself, it's even better, because then you can break the attachment. That person on the screen is just someone you're evaluating, and you can pick apart things. But so sitting down and standing up, practicing standing up, and I'm talking many times practicing doing each of these, and then in front of a mirror, that is the biggest eye opener you'll probably ever see in practicing presentations. And then, I'm not French, but the pièce de résistance, I think that's how you say it. I could be wrong, is practicing in front of a practice audience, colleagues, friends, not your dog. I love dogs, but dogs won't give you the feedback. And then ask them, I want you to pick out things like, do I stutter? Do I have repeated words? Do I seem like I'm rambling? What about the organization of my speech or presentation, that type of thing? A lot of people say, well, I utter a lot, or I do repeated words, ahs and ums. I have a very simple cure for that. In your practice audience, give one of them a New Year's Eve clicker and tell them that whenever I have a repeated word, an ah or an I want you to click that. After 2 clicks, maybe 3 clicks, if it's a little bit harder, you will not repeat words. You will just stop, pause, think about what you want to say, and then say it. New Year's Eve clickers. It works all the time. It's amazing.
Nice. That's wonderful. That's an excellent tip. Frank, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, my website is speakleadandsucceed.com. If anyone wants to schedule a meeting with me, it's calendly.com/Frank DiBartolomeo, DiBartolomeo speaks. And that will get you on my calendar.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My
One
name
more
is,
thing, I forgot to mention my email is frank@speakleadandsucceed.com.
okay, wonderful. We'll
Sorry.
make sure all of that is included in the show notes. Again, my name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. This is Teach the Geek interviews. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Frank.